It was just a normal afternoon, or at least that's what I thought. But when he looked at me that day, I knew something had changed. His eyes didn't see me as they always had. They saw something else, something dangerous, and I couldn't look away. I was 52 when this happened. A wife, a mother, and a woman who thought she had already lived through all the big chapters of her life. My marriage had grown quiet, not broken, not terrible, just quiet. Like a song that once had melody, but now only hummed in the background. And then there was him. He wasn't supposed to matter in my world the way he began to. He was family, not by blood, but close enough. The kind of person you share meals with, laugh with, trust without question. That day, he came by when my husband wasn't home. Just to drop something off, nothing unusual. But the way he lingered at the door, the way his eyes scanned me, not as a woman older than him, but as a woman, shook me in a way I didn't want to admit. I remember I was wearing something simple, nothing special. But he noticed. I could tell. His eyes stayed just a second too long. And I felt it, that electric awareness. My heart raced, not out of fear, but out of recognition of something forbidden. We sat down, made small talk. He told me stories about his day, and I laughed more than I should have. I could feel the air between us changing. He looked at me differently, not with the casual respect of family, but with curiosity, desire even. And the scariest part? I didn't stop him. I didn't look away. At one point, our hands brushed when I passed him a glass of water. It was nothing, really, or it should have been nothing. But the warmth of that touch spread through me, igniting feelings I thought I had buried long ago. My mind screamed at me, this is wrong. You can't let this happen. But my heart was beating so fast I thought he could hear it. He leaned in, just slightly when he spoke. His voice lower than usual, his eyes locked on mine. I told myself it was innocent, that I was imagining things. But deep down I knew. And he knew. That day, something shifted. He saw me differently. And once a man sees you that way, there's no going back. When he finally left, I closed the door and leaned against it, my whole body trembling. I wanted to hate myself for what I felt. I wanted to erase that moment. But the truth? I replayed it in my mind again and again, unable to stop. And worse than that, I knew this wasn't the last time. Cliffhanger outro for next part. That day should have ended with a goodbye. But instead, it opened a door I wasn't ready to face. Because once he looked at me that way, I knew it was only the beginning. The days that followed were normal on the surface, but inside me, everything was different. I couldn't stop thinking about that look. The way his eyes lingered on me, the way my body reacted without my permission. He came around again a few days later. This time, it wasn't an accident. My husband was at work, and he knew it. I told myself he was just being kind, checking in, helping out, but the truth was written all over his face the moment he walked in. We sat at the kitchen table, and the silence between us was unbearable. I tried to talk about anything, groceries, the weather, small things. But his eyes never wavered. They stayed locked on me, watching, waiting. At one point, I laughed nervously at something he said, and he leaned in closer than he should have. My pulse quickened, and I pulled back slightly but not far enough. He noticed, and for the first time, he reached out. His hand brushed against mine, and this time, neither of us moved away. That single touch lingered. It felt intentional, dangerous. I wanted to tell him to stop. I wanted to remind myself that this was wrong, that he was too close, too familiar, too forbidden. But instead I froze. My body betrayed me, leaning into the warmth, craving it, even as my mind screamed no. His voice was lower, softer, when he spoke next. You know, I don't see you the way everyone else does. My heart dropped. I should have stopped him then. I should have stood up, walked away, closed the door behind him. But the truth? I didn't want to. For years, I had felt invisible in my own marriage. My husband didn't notice the small things anymore, the way I changed my hair, the way I tried to keep myself put together. But this young man, he noticed. He saw me, and that dangerous truth was harder to resist than anything else. When he finally left that day, I stood in the kitchen staring at my hand, still tingling from his touch. Shame washed over me, but so did a hunger I hadn't felt in years. And deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of something I couldn't control. Cliffhanger outro for next part. I told myself it was harmless. Just a glance. Just a touch. But the line had already been crossed, and soon there would be no turning back. I tried to keep my distance after that last time. I avoided being alone with him, avoided conversations that lingered too long, avoided myself because I knew where my thoughts kept going. But temptation has a way of finding you, even when you're trying to run. One evening, he stopped by again. My husband was out late at work, and I knew I should have told him to leave. But instead, I opened the door wider. I let him in. The second he stepped inside, I could feel it. That same pull, that same dangerous current humming in the air. I tried to busy myself, making tea, straightening the table, anything to keep my hands occupied. But he just stood there watching me. Finally, he said softly, "Why do you keep pretending you don't feel it too?" My heart sank. The words I had been avoiding were now spoken aloud. I froze, teacup in my hand trembling. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to push him away. But when I turned to look at him, the truth was in my eyes and he saw it. He stepped closer, slow, deliberate. My breath caught in my throat as he reached out and gently touched my arm. It was such a simple gesture, yet it burned through me like fire. I whispered, "This isn't right." He leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper, then tell me to stop. But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I stood there frozen, torn between the woman I had been all my life and the woman I was in that moment. And when he finally closed the space between us, when his lips brushed against mine, I didn't push him away. It wasn't a kiss filled with wild passion, not yet. It was hesitant, trembling, filled with fear and desire tangled together. But in that single moment, everything changed. The line I swore I would never cross was gone. When we finally pulled apart, I felt a rush of emotions I couldn't control: guilt, shame, longing, and something else I didn't want to admit: relief. Relief that I wasn't invisible. Relief that someone saw me, wanted me. I told him to leave after that, and he did. But the damage was already done. I stood in my living room, heart racing, lips still tingling, realizing I had just stepped into a world I couldn't turn back from. After that first kiss, I couldn't sleep for nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt it again. His lips, the way he looked at me, the silent question hanging in the air: what happens now? I told myself it wouldn't happen again. I tried to be strong, to avoid him, to bury myself in routine. But the truth? Deep inside, I was waiting for him to come back. And he did. It was late afternoon. My husband had gone to run errands, and before I could even process what I was doing, I found myself opening the door to him again. This time, there was no nervous laughter, no pretending. The air was charged, heavy with everything we both knew was about to happen. We sat in the living room, but conversation barely existed. Every word felt like a distraction. I could feel his gaze on me, feel the way my hands shook when I tried to keep them folded neatly in my lap. Finally, he reached out, his fingers brushing mine, and unlike before, I didn't pull away. Instead, I turned my hand over, lacing my fingers with his. That was all it took. He leaned in, and this time, the kiss wasn't hesitant. It was hungry, desperate, as though we had both been holding our breath for too long. My body betrayed every promise I had made to myself. I melted into him, allowing the storm I had tried so hard to deny to finally take over. I knew it was wrong. I knew every second was a step further into a place I could never come back from. But in that moment, guilt was drowned out by desire. For the first time in years, I felt wanted, alive. His hands held me tighter, and I didn't resist. I didn't say no. I didn't stop what was happening. I welcomed it. And when it was over, when silence finally returned to the room, reality hit me harder than I was ready for. My clothes were wrinkled, my heart racing, my mind screaming, "What have you done?" He looked at me with a softness I didn't expect. Not lust, not conquest, but something deeper, something dangerous. I told him he had to leave, and he did. But as soon as the door shut behind him, I collapsed against it, trembling, realizing the truth. This wasn't just a mistake anymore. This was an affair. And now, there was no hiding from it. The first time we crossed that line, I told myself it was a one-time mistake. But mistakes don't come with such intensity, such craving. We kept finding reasons to see each other A quick visit, a short errand, an excuse that barely made sense. Every time it happened, I swore it would be the last. And every time, I was lying to myself. But desire isn't the only thing that grows in silence. Guilt does too. And guilt has a way of showing itself in ways you can't hide. One evening, I was sitting with my husband at dinner. He looked at me, and for the first time in a long time, he really looked at me. Not casually, not distractedly, but with suspicion. "You've been different lately," he said. I froze, my fork trembling in my hand. I forced a smile, made up something about being tired, about the housework, about nothing at all. But inside, my heart was pounding. Did he know? Could he see it written on my face? The truth was, I had been different. I laughed too easily when he was around. I blushed at things that shouldn't have made me blush. My husband wasn't a fool. He might not have had proof, but he felt the shift. And then there were the little things, the text messages I deleted too quickly, the moments I disappeared into another room just to answer a call. The way I avoided my husband's touch at night, afraid that my body might betray me again. Every lie built another wall between us. And every wall made me more desperate to run back to the only place I felt alive. But it wasn't just my husband who noticed. Others did too. A lingering glance too long when family was in the room. A silence that didn't feel natural. People notice these things, even when they don't say it out loud. And one day, someone did say something. A family friend, someone close, someone who knew us well, pulled me aside after a gathering. They looked me in the eyes and asked softly, "Is everything all right between you and your husband? You seem different." The blood drained from my face. Did they know? Had they seen something? I brushed it off, laughed nervously, gave excuses. But deep down, fear gripped me tighter than ever before. Because secrets don't stay secrets for long. The fear of being caught lived inside me every single day. Every laugh that felt too real, every glance that lingered too long, every excuse I gave, they all piled up like a house of cards ready to collapse. And then it did. One evening, my husband found something I had carelessly left behind. A text I hadn't deleted. Just a few words, but enough to confirm what he already suspected. I still remember the look on his face. It wasn't anger, not at first. It was hurt. A deep, soul-crushing hurt that said more than any words ever could. "Why?" he asked me. Just that one word. And I had no answer that could justify the betrayal. In that moment, I realized something terrifying. I hadn't just betrayed my husband. I had betrayed myself. The woman I thought I was, the values I thought I lived by, the family I thought I was protecting. I had thrown it all into the fire. The fallout was messy. There were tears, screaming, silence that cut deeper than any words. The trust was broken, and no matter how much I wished I could glue the pieces back together, it would never look the same again. He saw me differently that day. Not as the woman he once loved, but as the woman who had shattered the foundation of their life together. And the hardest part, I saw myself differently too. I wasn't the victim of temptation. I wasn't the woman who just slipped. I was someone who made choices that hurt the people who loved me the most. We like to think we can hide our mistakes, bury them where no one will ever find them. But the truth is, they always find their way back to the surface. And when they do, you're forced to face them, whether you're ready or not. That's what the story is. Not about passion, not about secrets, not about what was done in the dark, but about the light that eventually exposes everything. Infidelity doesn't just change the way others see you, it changes the way you see yourself. And sometimes that's the most painful part of all.